Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing great on this fine Sunday. And the lovely gentleman with me today is Steve from Shadows of Archonia. How are you doing, Steve?
Hello. Great. Thank you for having me, Carl.
It's a pleasure. I've been watching your videos, mostly the Tales from the Backlog, and they're great fun.
Oh, I appreciate it.
So let's say hello to everyone in the chat before we get going, and then you can tell us everything about yourself. So, hi
Would love
Charlene,
to.
hi Mia, and hi Dungeon Matron. How are you all doing? There seems to be something going on with bacon in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the bacon.
I mean, well,
I had sausage this morning and breakfast for you.
bacon is always awesome.
Ah, can't argue with that. Hey, yeah, Lisa, Mia, good to see you guys. I like seeing familiar names in the chat. That's good.
So, Steve, how about you start by telling us a bit about yourself, maybe how you got into gaming and stuff like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Steve, like you said, I am in Southern California, born and raised. Let's see, how did I get into gaming? I got into it fairly late compared to a lot of people. I was in my 30s, already married. The first time I played Dungeons and Dragons, which at the time the current edition was fourth edition. Um, I got into it because I had an old board game called Hero Quest, which some people are wild, obsessive fans of, and other people have never heard of. But if you know it, you know it's one of the best things ever made. And I had this when I was a kid, but it's not really a role playing game. It's more a role playing game inspired board game. And
Yep.
it kind of rides the line. And so I had this game as a kid. As an adult, I had been to college. I went to college for film production. I was
Nice.
out of college and running a writers group, a weekly writers group in my home with a lot of friends, where we would bring written material, screenplays. Some people were writing novels or short stories, with one person writing poetry, a couple actually. Um, but what happened one day is my father used to frequent the writing group because he was writing some poetry for a while, and he came by with my old Hero Quest box. He says, "Your mother wants you to get
Dun
this out
dun
of the
dun.
house." Yeah. So the other people in the group were like, "What's this?" I was like, "You guys, you don't know." So we started playing Hero Quest, and we had a Hero Quest group going for a year or two. Um,
Concurrently with the writers group or instead of the writers group?
we would play at first. We would play after the group, and then we would just play. We just get together just to do that.
Yeah, the thing with Hero Quest is that apart from the nostalgia factor for people who played it way back, but all the miniatures and the cardboard walls and stuff and the board, they just hit the big red 6-year-old button. Yep, you're 6 years old again and
Yeah,
you're going to play with plastic toys.
absolutely. Yeah, and we still laugh about the guy who played the wizard, and he didn't feel like it, so he named his wizard Wizzy, and and the best moment of Hero Quest was when I think it was an orc tried to get past him. He just whacked it with his staff for his one his one attack dice of damage that wizards get in Hero Quest, and he died. And he said you just got whizzed on, and we still quote that. I'm so sorry you were drinking. Yeah, that is. So there was another person in the writers group who had played D&D as a kid,
Mhm.
and he, after years of playing, well, months maybe of playing Hero Quest with us, he started trying to get us into D&D, and I was like, guys, that's for nerds. I'm not going to do that. Um, and then he got my other friend on board with them, and eventually uh, they got us all to be like, all right, we'll try it out. He went and bought the fourth edition core books, and came over, and then the thing that bothered me at the time was this guy who'd been pressuring us to play D&D. He then came by and he was like, "Steve, you got to run it." And I was like, "I've never played this. I don't. Why?" And he and my other friend are like, we talked and we decided you're the best one of us to run this. And I'm like, so I have to read these books.
So you were
It's like,
volunteered into it, kind of thing.
yeah, they pressured me into it. So my first game of D&D or any tabletop role playing game, I was the DM, and we ended up with myself and 5 players. My wife was one of them. We got into the hobby together, um, and I had seeded a couple things into the players' backstories to make them sort of have potentially conflicting goals in the game. And
Oh,
so
I see.
in the first session, a little ways in, a situation happened where my wife and this other guy, Glenn, were actually on their feet arguing with each other in character. And I didn't have to say a word for half an hour. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing this. So that's how I got into gaming. The rest is history. That game continued for years. That campaign, it got so big, it got up to 9 players at one point.
Well, all right.
That we had to split it in two, and then both of those groups got too big. Um, yeah, and early on, in fact, before the end of that first adventure, which was the fourth edition published adventure, Keep on the Shadowfell, uh, one of the other guys in the group discovered DM Scotty's channel.
Oh,
And it was early days for Scotty at the time. Uh, and he was like, we were planning to rotate DMs. When I finished Keep on the Shadowfell, someone else is going to take over. And this guy was like, "Steve, when I do it, don't tell anyone. I'm gonna build some of this stuff. I'm gonna blow everyone's minds." And I stole it from him. And I built for our final encounter. I built out the entire. And when we get to the photos that I sent you later, you can see it. I built out the entire final sacrifice chamber
I can just bring it up
for
right now.
Keep on the Shadowfell. Sure, yeah.
Okay, one sec.
Let's see.
I believe you labeled it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is in miscellaneous builds, and it's gonna be the second photo.
Okay, coming up. Oh,
Nope,
nice.
they're in a
Not
different
this one?
order for you than me. No, not that one. That's much more recent.
Okay,
Um,
let's see, maybe sort them by
which one
name.
are they? Yeah, I have them by name. That's why they're different.
Let's see, is it this one?
No, that's not it.
Nope.
No,
Okay.
that's from one of our streams. So the name, it's a big number. You know what? Maybe I should rename it. That's the one. So that was my first piece of crafting. And it hung around for a long time, and you can see it uses Scotty's original 2.5D system,
Yeah, I think it's
where
made of corrugated card as well, yeah?
it is cardboard and yeah, and like a lot of the early stuff that Scotty built, it's kind of a single-use gigantic tile.
Yeah.
Um, so over time, I broke the torches off and glued them to individual bases. I broke all those pillars off and used them for other things. I did eventually get to reuse this set in a stream game years later, but finally, because of the increasing number of things in the house, I had to throw this out. But this was my first piece of crafting. So I put this on the table. Glenn was mad. He's like, "You stole my idea." I'm like, "Yeah, but you can see that I did it better, right?" And,
So let me guess, you've got
everyone's blown away.
the hot glue texture in the middle there and stuff. That's some pretty classic stuff. But I mean,
Yes, that's right.
and to be honest, this is fairly ambitious for a first project if you've never done anything else before.
Yeah, I learned that later. This is uh, but it matches. I had a plan. I had a design already made for me because this matches what was in the book for the
Mhm.
adventure I was running. So I was like, I can just build the thing that I see. Those little rectangles are actually printed out rugs that I just printed out on my computer and cut out and glued down.
You
So
mean these white ones down at the this end of the?
yeah, they look white in the photo. They actually had like a rug pattern on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then
the
yeah,
grating looks
everything
really
else
good.
is
Yeah.
just yeah. It's still one of the best things I've done. Honestly, I'm not that good at this, but this one every now and then I get lucky, and the first time was a lucky time. Yeah. And the photos from the wrong angle. I think there's maybe another one from the opposite angle, but that sort of half cylinder shape there is meant to be a portal. And what I did was I cut the cover of a stack of yeah, that I cut the cover of a stack of CDs in half.
Okay.
You used to have writable CDs, and
The ones that
I took
came
the
on the
cover off
spindle, yeah, kind of thing.
on the spindle, exactly. Yeah. So I had a spindle of CDs and a spindle of DVDs, and they were both half guns. So I put them on the same spindle and I cut the lid in half. And yeah, hand painted that rune circle there, and used the CD case for the cover, and from that point on, there was no going back to grids and markers. So in a lot of ways, Scotty has been with me for almost my entire gaming career, and I've been a Patreon supporter of his for most of that time. I don't think Patreon existed at first, but I've been with him for a long time, and yeah, like I was telling you before we went live, um, what happened is we had these two big groups that we were running, and they were scheduled to meet once a month because we were all grown-ups. We all had responsibilities. My wife and I also had children, and one or two other people in the group had that as well. And once a month gaming. But the problem with only gaming once a month is if you miss a session,
Mm,
well, then you're only gaming every 2 months.
yep.
And then Christmas and Thanksgiving come around and it's only every 4 months. And especially with the groups as large as they were, 8 to 9 people in each one, we were just hardly ever playing. But because the groups were so large and they had been rotating new players in and out
Mhm.
for years, I ended up with a little community of about 30 gamers
Whoa. All right.
or former gamers. And I said, I am sick of this. I want to play every week. So um, I had seen shows like Critical Role, and I'd seen some of the live plays that Acquisitions Incorporated had done. And I didn't really get why anyone would ever want to watch someone else play D&D. Didn't make sense to me. I was like, I honestly feel the same way about sports. I understand playing sports. I don't really get why people watch it. That's someone else's game. You're not in it. Um,
Yep,
what
I'm with you there.
what changed for me was um, the Dungeon Dudes. The Dungeon Dudes. I was watching their YouTube
Mhm.
channel for a long time, Money and Kelly, and they spun off from their existing YouTube channel into their Dungeons of Drakkenheim campaign. Um, and it was I didn't watch it at first. I continued watching just their YouTube videos for probably several months, and then I finally broke down. I was like, all right, I'll watch this Drakkenheim thing. I was like, man, this is good. And I realized, for me, I think there were a number of things that were different about their stream from the others that I had watched. One of the chief ones being just fewer people. A smaller group of players for me made it easier to get into each player's story, made it easier to get hooked. And whatever it was, I ended up being convinced that yeah, it is. You can enjoy watching people play D&D, and of course now I do it all the time. I watch more D&D games than I watch regular television, but um, it was really their stream, their Drakenheim stream, that inspired me to start one. And in fact, I was a Patreon supporter of theirs as well, and they gave me some good advice, and they were very helpful to me at the start of my own stream. They told me, oh, these are the cameras we're using, these are the mics we're using. They were very kind to me, and they were very open to discussing with me, how they were doing what they were doing. And sometime around maybe this month, maybe June-ish of 2019, Shadows of Archonia episode 1 came out. And at the time, oh, you should bring up some photos of that.
Coming up.
Yeah,
Let's see.
they're in the parent folder.
Coming up.
And there's one called C1 for Campaign 1 and then Episode 1.
Let's see. C1 episode
Yeah,
1. Okay.
yeah. So I took 2 shots from Episode 1 because I wanted to kind of show off how far we've come with the production value. This is a freeze frame of our role-playing setup. At the time, we had a big flat tabletop,
Mm-hmm.
which I live in a house that was formerly owned by my grandmother before she passed. And she had this little dining table for just herself. And I put the leaves in to expand it, and it was still tiny. So um, I built this giant, like 8x4 tabletop to just sit on top of her table. And it was wobbly and it was made of thin plywood and it was awful. But that's what we used to game on. I would just have that and I'd throw a huge black cloth over it. And that's what you see us sitting at here.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about this shot is we only had 2 cameras. So there's one pointed at me and one pointed at them. And if you advance to the next image, you will see that I sort of faked at the time, I sort of faked having a tabletop camera by just having the same camera zoomed out for the other OBS scene,
All right.
basically. Yeah, it worked. It was all right. Um, but as you go through our old episodes, you start to see we got another camera and we got another camera, and that one doesn't focus because it's old and beat up. And this other one, Alan had to bring from his house every day because it's his and it's not mine. And like that's how things were running. The sound was even worse. Our early episodes, we had a single Yeti mic sitting on the table. To catch all of us. And so
Oh,
not
wow.
only did
Okay.
it get my wife and kids and dog in the other room, but it also got, because it was sitting physically on the table, dice rolls were awful.
Oh, yeah, of
Or
course.
anytime someone slapped their hands down. And we tried a number of things. I've got this USB log right here, which I still have to use sometimes, but we eventually got into USB lavaliers, and things got a lot better. If you will please advance to the next photo, you can see episode 100 of that campaign.
Okay.
So this was episode 1,
Oh,
and
whoa.
here's our
All
episode
right.
100. Yeah. So for this, of course, we had 4 cameras. There's only 3 on right now because we have 2 setups. We have the role-playing scene in OBS, and then we will go to the combat scene. When we go into combat, we show the terrain. So then there's 4 cameras active.
Nice.
But you can see this is the same room. It's a different table. It's got different lighting. That man there playing Darrow is a
Hmm?
professional lighting technician
Oh, okay.
in Hollywood. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the shows that he works on, but they're shows that probably a lot of people in our community never miss an episode of. And he does a lot of the like effects lighting for them.
Nice.
So he had started, obviously, even with the talent in the room, the money is a factor. We don't have Patreon supporters or
Hmm.
anything. So it was a while before he could really help. Um, but he had by this point. You can see we've got smart lighting in the room. I can change the color of the room lighting now with the touch of a button. If you'd like to advance to the next photo, you can see what the combat setup looks like.
I would indeed like that.
Um,
And here we go.
this is episode 100, same episode. Now we're in combat. Um, so that's the table, and that's the new table, which my father and I built together, which has built-in power. There's a power outlet on the bottom of the table near every leg with 4 plugs, so people can keep their laptops or their tablets or whatever they're using charged. There's cup holders at every station. We only have 4 players, but it can seat up to 7 players in the DM. If we're not streaming, which the table was not designed with streaming in mind. It was actually a, years in the making. It was designed before I had a stream, um, and then not built until much later. But when we're not streaming, there can be a person at the end that just has a camera on. The opposite end from the DM
All right.
just has a camera pointed at me. So when we're not streaming, there can be a person there, and there can be 3 people on each of the long sides. And then each person has a drawer that they can pull out. So they each have power. There's lighting built into the table. The lighting is not very visible in this. I'm not even sure it's on in this frame. But originally, I had like just a very cheap LED strip that
Hmm?
stuck inside the table that I had to control with a little remote separately from how I was controlling the room lights. Um, More recently, that's changed because Matt got involved again, and we took the table apart and he rewired the lighting and put in these awesome new light strips. Which actually, if you want to go ahead a couple of images, you
I
can
do
see what the
indeed.
new lighting looks like.
Yeah, coming up. In the meantime, hi to Questboard Terrain and Campaign Terrain and the OG Steve, Earthman Brick. How are you doing, guys? Let's see.
Oh, well, let's see. That's Cyberpunk. That's not what
I
I was trying to
think I
show
can see
you.
some of the
But oh
light.
yeah, yeah, that's the old lighting still.
All right,
Oh, here's the new lighting. So
too
this
sharp.
is yes, this is from our campaign 2, which started just recently. We're 4 episodes in. Um, we have switched systems. As I mentioned before, we switched from D&D 5e to Worlds Without Number,
Hmm?
which if you guys don't know it, I highly recommend that you check it out. It's a great system by Kevin Crawford. It's somewhere I was telling Karl earlier, this is somewhere like riding the line between the simplicity of an OSR game like Merkborg and the complex character building of what you might be used to with Dungeons and Dragons. So you kind of get a little of both, a very simple system, but with options to build a character how you want. Anyway, I got on a little tangent there, but we were talking about the lights. The lights are awesome. The great thing about them is now they can color change with a button push along with the rest of the room. So I can build lighting scenes that I change between very easily. So you see this one is green. I think one of the adjacent photos should show the light as when it's blue.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm trying to catch up with the chat. And no, Lisa, we are not doing the edible terrain thing. We are not, I repeat, not doing the edible terrain thing.
No, oh, there's Mia. Love Mia.
Oh, I was just, oh,
No, there
this
is
was real fun.
definitely. Oh, you watched that one? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
The
haven't
night that
finished
was just
watching
recent.
this one, but yeah. Let me see.
There's another shot with a similar angle to what we were just looking at that has blue lighting on it instead of green. But I mean, they can, you can also just take my word for it. The light changes color. Uh, oh, there you go.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Nice.
So, and this all happens with the touch of a button, now, which took some work from Matt to wire it up and some work from me to program all these different lights, which work on different systems. We have some that are Philips Hue lights and some that only can be controlled through Alexa. And so I, I ended up having to set up some really complicated programming commands using webhooks actually to get the lighting all to change together.
Yeah,
And
we were talking
yeah,
before
sometimes a
this.
couple seconds.
We were talking before the
Okay.
stream, and was saying, like I was saying there, I know a guy who would probably be all over your table.
Well, if he's ever in California, he's welcome to come by.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's just catch
Quick,
up
quick,
here.
quick.
Yeah, Campaign Terrain is telling you about your first build. Tiny throw rugs. Wouldn't want the huge floor with the blood whirlpool to get chilly.
Very true. Very true. It's also like 3 layers underground.
Okay, and uh, before we jump onto something else, I'm just going to drop the link to the community showcase in the chat. So if anyone has any of their own builds that they want to show off, we'll look at them at the end of the stream.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
there's some cool stuff in there already.
since we're talking about the table, could we jump in and have a look at the pictures of that? Because like I told you before the stream, that really is a thing of beauty.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Let's look at the table.
Okay, where you?
Uh, oh, we're already in the parent folder, so you probably just need to go to the top.
Ah, okay. Oh, no.
Yeah,
Ah, here it is. D table.
the table, yes. So my father is a professional woodworker. He designs custom cabinetry, and we did this in the wood shop where he works. Um, this was a table that the owner actually had that was just a regular dining table with a Formica top, and he let us have it, and we built it into this. You can see the electrical wiring in there for the
Yeah.
outlets. Uh,
Oh, is it?
yeah, so we made it, we made it this thick thing, and we cut drawer fronts out of the existing sides of the table, and you can open those up and use them as dice trays or keep stuff in them. Um,
Did the original table have this bending around it?
yes, and that
Nice.
is the main reason that we used it instead of building from scratch, because of that banding. Um, it was just too dang pretty. But it didn't have the drawers. We cut the drawers and added them, and let's see, we added that molding around the bottom so that it. Oh yeah, this is when I was in the process of sort of dry fitting the top pieces. Because when it's not in use as a gaming table, the other 6 days of the week, it's our dining table. My family and I eat
Uh-huh.
dinner there, so it covers up with these panels. And yeah, I remember when I was doing this. This took a lot of time.
Yeah,
It's
I
work.
think I can see a lot of mats going on in there.
Yeah, yeah. I actually put weather stripping on the edges of the panels in between. Oh, this is when Matt was redoing the lighting. This is a more recent picture.
Okay.
Incidentally, that chest behind his left shoulder, uh,
Oh, nice.
if you were to be, I don't have a picture of it. Sitting on top. I don't have a picture of the top of it. It has the HeroQuest logo hand carved into the top of it, because I was telling you about the HeroQuest games we used to play.
Uh-huh.
Partway through that journey, I discovered how much the original HeroQuest boxes were going for on eBay. And I said it was like $200 at the time
Yep.
to get HeroQuest. And I was like, you know what? I need to protect my copy. So that's actually an earlier build that my father and I did together. Is that treasure chest? If you open up the top lid, you have the HeroQuest box in it, uh, and then all of the rest of the chest has the rest of the pieces of the game. So that's a fun thing that we always have in the background of our in-person games.
This cupboard or
Yeah,
whatever it is also fantastic. That's
can't claim to have built that. I believe someone
yeah,
found that on the side of the
I
road.
think that looks fairly older than both of us put together, which is saying something.
Yeah, maybe just beat up.
Could be.
Yeah, yeah. So the new lighting there. Matt came over sort of in between. We finished our campaign one in, I think, September of 2022, and we didn't start campaign two until May of 2023. So in between there, we were running Cyberpunk Red. This is Alan. Alan's a great guy. He's a member of our main crew. He's on Monday occasionally. He's on Friday every week. He has his own Twitch channel, Lasercat 006. He does video game streaming over there. This is him gaming on our table, closed up, because we tried something new recently. This is a solo play board game that he backed on Kickstarter called Final
Yeah,
Girl.
I think I've seen the tabletop engineer do a few playthroughs on his channel. Yeah.
Oh, great! I wasn't aware of it before Alan told me about it, but yeah, he wanted to come by and run it. So Alan is actually basically the first person to run a stream on Shadows of Archonia without me. I was in the room. I was
Mm-hmm.
running tech for him, and I did pop on at the end to give some announcements. But basically, this is the only episode of Shadows of Arconia or Tales from the Backlog that doesn't have Steve in it. So that was fun for me.
Oh yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I really like
yeah,
the tabletop as well. That,
yeah, the tabletop is great. That's the main reason I included this in this folder, was to show off what the tabletop looks like and what the room looks like from another angle. it was cartoonish how long it took us to get the camera set up like that. He came over maybe an hour early, and we were like, "What? How do we? What?" It took me forever to remember. I own a tripod. I had brought a ladder in from the garage, and we were trying to tie the camera arm to that. And
Why?
I went to my yeah. I don't know, man. We used to use this tripod every week in our old setup, but somehow it just never occurred to me. I have a tripod in the office, and I actually I'm in that office now. I came in here looking for something else, and I glanced in the closet, and there's the tripod, and I'm like, I went back, and it was very easy. It was very easy. And you can see in this shot in the bottom right corner of the image the soundboard.
Ooh,
Now, this soundboard, um,
that looks fancy.
it was gifted to us. I mentioned some of the talent that we have, some of the film production talent that we have in the room when we play. None of us have any expertise in the area of sound, and it shows on our strings. Um, However, in our Cyberpunk Red campaign, two of them, um, uh, Thanksgiving and Homecoming, there's a player named Dean who plays the character Debbie in those games, and he does have experience as a sound technician. And after a few episodes with us, he uh, started messaging me about, "Hey, how are we doing sound? How does that work?" And next thing I know, we've got this soundboard in the room, and
Nice.
he's bought new lavs for it. We used to be doing USB straight into the computer, USB lavs straight into a USB hub that then went to the computer. So we had no soundboard. We had no ability to analog mix anything. He got the soundboard. He got XLR cables and XLR lavaliers. Um, and uh, it lives here now. It's his stuff still. He's the owner of it. He told me he expects to need to come get it maybe twice a year because he doesn't do this stuff professionally anymore. So uh, it it's not a gift, but it is a gift. It lives here. It lives in my house. I keep it in the box in a cabinet when we're not using it, and it has upped our production value significantly. So thank you, Dean. I'm sure you're not watching, but this was incredible, and this was a huge gift. This saved us so much
Yeah, for sure.
headache.
So let's
Yeah.
see. Earthman Brick is saying, so fancy, it looks like the fanciest medieval game room ever. And yeah, it does. It is a really fancy looking room.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the room here was I don't know if I said this while we were live or if I said it to you before we were live, but the house that I live in is actually my grandmother's home from
Hmm.
before she passed. This room was an addition to the original house that she had built in the 70s. She used that room as her living room. All of the furniture and everything is different now. My wife and I replaced the floor. That's actually ceramic tile. It looks like wood. Um, it's ceramic tile that we put in, but the wood paneling is what Grandma had there, and so we kind of just built out on that theme of all the wood, and it does indeed look like an awesome game room. That desk in the back corner opposite the camera is where my wife works when she's working from home. That's her
All right.
office. So um, if ever at the beginning of a stream it looks like I'm rushed on a Friday, it's because my wife worked late. Because we have to we can't start until she's out of the room.
No,
Uh,
I can understand that.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
let's.
we try to keep up professional appearance, but at the end of the day, this is our dining room, my wife's office, our game room. It's got some storage. Right next to it is the garage where we do laundry. So it's not a studio. It's just
Yeah,
my dining room.
I think I mentioned it before the stream when we were talking about it, and you don't see the feet flapping under the water, trying to keep everything afloat.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's
Yeah,
see.
that's how it feels a lot of the time.
So Scatter Terrain joined us. Hello, Scatter Terrain. Hope you're doing great.
Hello.
And I do have to inform you, Scatter Terrain, that unfortunately you have been dethroned from the position of the person who sent in the most photos for a stream. You are now in
Sorry.
second place.
Well, I don't know. A lot of mine are nearly identical duplicates, so I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going through them one by one to find out. So yeah,
There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah, that banding is great.
yep.
And you can see, I think I mentioned it was designed as a gaming table, not a streaming table. So you can see sort of strapped to the leg, we have a lot of the cables that have to run to the computer for the
Ah, okay,
stream.
yeah.
And underneath on the bottom, I have stuck runners and we've got things up there, double-sided tape. If I were to build this table again from scratch today, all that stuff would be interior to the table.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
I just didn't think of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that you normally plan for, like, yeah, what if I start an online streaming game or something? I think.
Yeah, exactly. Even though by the time I actually built it, I had been streaming for some time.
Oh,
I
all
wanted
right.
to talk about this mark. That's wood burned in there. Um,
Nice.
that is a Korean character. Interesting that that's the first one you brought up. If you go around my table, I don't know how easy that is to do with photos, but if you're here in person and you were to go around my table
I
and
think.
open all of these drawers, oh yeah, there, I did get some photos. These are the family crests of my original gaming group
Oh, wow, okay.
that I wood burned in. And as I mentioned, I was the DM for our first game, so I have a fairly visual memory, and I remember exactly where everyone was sitting. So at their spot, even though it was a different table at the time, is their mark. Um, so not everyone in my group is of European descent. So that's why that mark in the middle there, the guy who sat there was Filipino, and he told me that that mark is from an old Filipino alphabet and represents the hard K sound, like K, which is the first sound of his name. So he wanted me to put that on there.
All right.
And the other one that we saw was for Yuri, whose last name is Hyun. She's Korean. So we just put the character for her name on there. That's my own.
That's
It's
your
not
own.
at the DMC. I put it over there instead because we actually had rotating DMs in our first campaign.
Uh-huh.
So the one on the DM seat is blank, which was something actually one of the other players thought of, and I decided that was a great idea.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
my wife's. That's my wife's. I used her maiden name just so it would be different from my own.
Nice.
Her name is Turi, and somewhere you can see on the other side. And of course, some people are not of European descent, and other people are of European descent but have no idea what their family crest is. So there are a few of these that were also just designed from scratch, including my own,
Okay.
which is a combination of the crests for uh, McCullough and Brasseurs. My name Bashir is actually American, corruption of a French name Brasseurs. So I took McCullough, which is my mother's maiden name, and Brasseurs, which is distantly related to my father's name, and I created a Bashir crest. This is Esther Lena, um, Ray, who used to sit here, um, actually changed their name from what it was before. I actually don't remember what their name was before I knew them, but they created the name Esterlina, and as a result, created this piece of art for it. And the Newton over there, there are lots of Newton crests that you can find, but the Edward Newton who sat at this spot wanted to do his own anyway because he didn't necessarily relate to any of the ones he found online. So
Fair. Yeah.
I say that it's everyone's family crest. Really, it's just whatever mark they gave me to put on there.
Yeah, but it's
But
yeah.
my
Yeah, please go on.
I was just going to say my original group. In fact, all three of the people who are currently in the picture no longer live in the state of California, but they will be forever be commemorated at the game table because they were there with me at the start.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have something like this as part of your gaming group's history.
Yes, and I cannot wait to die so that my sons can fight over who gets the table. Oh yeah, this is the backside of it. There's so much stuff. I think I used the wrong kind of felt or something. I cannot keep that clean inside that drawer. But so I wanted to show the backside of the DM screen because when this is not in use as a DM screen. It lays flat and it's part of the tabletop.
Oh, okay. Ah, that's
Um,
a great idea.
yeah, and so that's what those little tiny nubbins, those little shelves are on the two outside pieces. They stop it from sliding around. They stick into the gaming vault
I
and hit
gotcha.
the sides so it doesn't slide around. The black strip is ferrous paint. It's like iron filing paint,
Yeah, I
so
think I
I can
see
stick magnets to it.
magnets over there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what that is. And then all of the wood parts of it are covered with a dry erase finish, so I can also write on it with dry erase markers.
Oh, come on. Seriously?
Yeah, you can see
Nice.
some writing on this center panel at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep track of hit points there. If I don't have anything else to write on real quick, I just
Yeah, that's a really good idea. That reminds me, on the 10th of September, we're having our Dungeon Master Screen Challenge. So that will be a build challenge stream where we're going over Dungeon Master screens that everyone has built.
oh
So
wow, okay.
yeah,
I
if you want to jump in on that, yeah, do that.
Can I use this one or do I have to build one from scratch
Dude, you don't have
for
to
the
build another
challenge?
one. This one is genius enough already. I mean, you could if you want to,
Okay,
but
I didn't know if it was like you're supposed to do it in a certain amount of time.
no, no. I mean,
I actually have some improvements planned for this one. I want more Ferris paint because I don't have enough room to magnet stuff to it. And Matt is planning to put a light in there to light me while I'm
din
on
din din
camera.
din.
Mhm.
Oh, that's also a good idea because you also have to consider filming in your case. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
nice.
In fact, that's one of the reasons we changed the rest of the table lighting. In addition to looking cooler on the tabletop, it uplights the players.
Okay.
So we were having trouble just getting enough light for our cameras for a while, but and that's a thing of the past.
Yeah, lighting is still something that I'm learning about. Lighting and sound mostly. I think those have been the two trickiest parts when working on videos.
Yeah. So this is what it looks like when it's all open and there's not a bunch of terrain in it. Um, yeah, it's fun. I don't know why I chose blue for the felt. I saw some tables that had purple, and I just wanted to be different.
No, but seriously, solid work. This is magnificent.
Thank you. Yeah, I do love the table. It's a great thing to have. It's one of those things that was both kind of a dream project, but also like I continue to enjoy it. There's so many times when you finish a project, you're like, well, that's done, and now I'm done with it. But this table is not that. This table is useful every day.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go for it. Painting has joined us. Hi, hope you're doing great. Dungeon is saying chalkboard paint would work for that too. Oh. And
Yes.
chalkboard
Yes,
paint
I
needs
have some chalkboard paint.
seasoning or it won't erase properly. Oh, yeah.
Mia, I will want to hear more about that from you because I have chalkboard paint on my son's closet door, and it's had the same chalk on it for about 10 years. I obviously made that mistake too, but I didn't learn from it. So I'll talk to you later.
Okay, but yeah, the dry erase thing, that's a real good idea.
Yeah, it was cool stuff. I like that. Oh, can you click on that first photo?
This one,
Yep. So the same man who got us that soundboard, he works now producing like stage um, sets for the shop he works at. They do things like the Emmys and like the stage props that are on the background of the stage. So he's basically like in a little fabrication room all day. And one day he showed up at my house with our logo
nice.
cut out of wood. That thing's probably 2.5 feet. I've never measured, probably 2.5 feet tall. And it's just our logo. And you've seen the picture of the room. There's no place left to hang that. I'm like, this has to be on camera. Like it just has, this is ridiculously cool. So yeah, that guy is really awesome.
Yeah, you know what you could
Uh,
do is you get yourself a high bagged kind of throne
oh yes, I could
and just
put
mount
that
it
on
on
the
the top of it.
throne.
Yeah.
Oh man. That would be one of those things that wouldn't go over well when my wife has her Zoom meetings for work. Because
I
we
mean,
have to There's a dance that happens throughout the week of which way is her camera facing and which way are my cameras facing.
Yeah, you get. I'm guessing she might get that. Why is your office full of skulls? Question, yeah.
She does, yeah, and she puts things in front of the skulls a lot of the time for her calls. She happens to work for she does HR at a video game production company,
Okay,
so she's with other people who understand games. So it's
that
not a
that helps, I
problem
guess.
for
Yeah.
her to have, yeah, it's not a problem for her to have D&D books in the background. But I came in there once and I found a stuffed animal in front of one of the skulls. She's like, too many skulls. I was like, all right. But no, she, the way we're talking about her right now, it makes her sound like she's some people just their wives are not into the gaming, but mine is not like that. There are many of these pictures that I sent you that have her in them because she's been on the show a number of times. She's in our Cyberpunk Red game. She is actually the only person other than myself who has played the same character in all of our Cyberpunk Red games. Um, She's also been on our Monday night shows, Tales from Backlogs, a number of times. Um, she was on the two that I ran recently. I don't know if you saw this. You told me you were watching Survive the Night.
I watched
Um,
the at least the first half hour of it, I think. Yeah.
okay, so you saw at least that, but also the previous week I ran Easy D6 for Scotty.
Hmm.
Because what happened was Scotty and Brian Crenshaw, who is the writer of Survive the Night, he's a friend of mine. I actually met him through Scotty. Um, he's joined my writers group. Actually, he joins that remotely. Um, but they had both agreed to and then backed out of Monday night episodes where I was going to run their own game for them. And it's just because of their work schedules. They just can't do Mondays. So whenever we have a Thursday stream, it's generally because Scotty's on. We'll do an extra night for him. And I realized, the same thing is actually true for Brian. Brian can come by on a Thursday. So I
Hmm.
reached out to both of them. I said, I want you guys to group up, and I'm going to run both of your games for both of you. And so we did that. Scotty wanted to run his Star Trek playset. I don't know if it's going to be called that when it comes out. He was telling me the name's in flux, but he's writing a Star Trek inspired playset for EZD6. So he had run that for us once before, and then I ran it for him, and then I ran Survive the Night for him and Brian. So that's a lot of fun uh, to run someone through their own game system. And of course, I had to create my own scenarios for each. I didn't want to run one that they wrote; that would be terrible. But I did
Yeah,
go
it
by
would
the
be a
book of
bit weird. Yeah.
quests. Yeah. Well, I almost did for Brian, like previously when he was going to be on, because Survive the Night is it's a great game, but it's not my genre. Like horror is not instinctively where I live. So I was just going to use one of his, but I was like, I can't do that. If I'm making up a Star Trek game for Scotty, I got to make up a ghost story for Brian. So eventually I did, and I did successfully kill all of them. No spoilers. It's called Survive the Night. Almost nobody survives the night. That's how the game works. You guys, by the way, if you haven't ever checked it out, go to Drive Through RPG and buy Easy D6 and Survive the Night, because these are both great games, and they're both D6 systems, both very simple. Obviously, Easy D6 is even more simple because it doesn't even have character stats. Um, but yeah, highly recommend both of them. They're fantastic games. Uh, Brian ran Survive the Night on our stream twice, and then I ran
Hmm.
it for him once. Easy D6 has been on the stream 7, 8 times at this point.
Yeah,
We've been very fortunate.
I think
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, you had an Easy D6 stream with Scotty when it wasn't even called Easy D6 yet. Yeah, I think it was still called /boom at the
Slash
time.
Hack Boom.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I was going to say that actually. We've been very fortunate that Scotty has used our stream for playtesting, not only his core game but these playsets that he's now writing. So yeah, Slash Hack Boom was what it was called, and at the time, I believe his thinking was that the system was going to be called EZD6, but then he was going to build games on top of that system,
Mhm.
and the fantasy one was going to be called Slash Hack Boom. Kind of like Cipher System is the system, but then Numenera is the game.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or you have like Fate Core. Like that's what I think he was thinking. Eventually, he sort of changed strategies and published the fantasy setting as part of the core EZD6 book, and now he's doing playsets for it. So we were fortunate to get to run EZD6 before it was even called EZD6 on the channel, and then also fortunate enough that he's brought his Wasted World playset, his Star Trek
Yeah,
playset.
I am so looking forward to Wasted World. That's we've been
It's
playing it and
fantastic.
playtesting it. That's it's just too much
There
fun.
there was a run of weeks there where we played Wasted World so many times. Yeah, I felt like we played it 4 times in a month, um,
Okay,
which is a lot for a single game.
yeah. We've got some comments on your horror game. So Mia is saying, proud to have died first. And Scattertree
Oh
is
yeah.
saying, it was a great horror show. I was yelling at my screen, my solutions to their problems the whole time.
Oh well, that's the greatest compliment I've ever gotten. That's fantastic.
Okay,
Oh
and
yes.
Tanjumatri is saying, I wish 10 Candles could be run on the stream. 10 Candles is the one where you light things on fire, yeah?
Yeah, you're lighting things on fire. That's exactly right. So, Dungeon Matron, Lisa, there's a story there. We have scheduled her twice to come over to my house. We've never met in person, but she doesn't live too far from me. 2 different Mondays, she was supposed to come up here and run 10 candles for us for Tales from the Backlog. Um, I think one of them, there was some sort of last minute emergency with her son, and then one of them there was a last minute emergency with my son, and they both ended up getting canceled. I say an emergency with my son. He clogged the plumbing. Like an hour before Lisa was supposed to walk in. We've only got one bathroom in the house, so it wasn't like just use the other bathroom, we'll be
Yeah.
fine. It was like, nah, sorry, I have to fix this immediately. The game is canceled. But yeah, so we are still trying to do 10 candles. In fact, I had opened the other day. Oh gosh, how do I get out of full screen? Because I want to. Oh, here, exit full screen. That's how.
Okay.
I wanted to. I wanted to check how many games we have run on the show, and it's somewhere in the 50s
Whoa, all right.
since 2019. And I went to a folder where I keep all of the assets for the stream for each show in their own subfolder. So the way that I counted really quickly was I selected all the folders and then looked at how many folders are selected. But then I realized, oh no, I have to deselect the 10 candles one because I created that whole thing
Oh,
and we still haven't run the game.
yeah, but
So
you do have to make it happen now because we created the assets. You can't let that time go to waste.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's so there's 54 items in this folder, which means we have run 54 games on Tales from the Backlog. Um, and 55 on the channel because there's Worlds Without Number, which we've never run on Tales from the Backlog. It's only on Fridays. Um, so that's a lot of games. All of this since basically 2021. Our first Hyper Tellurians game was December 2020.
Yeah, so you got
Um,
an average of kind of one game every 2 weeks, pretty much.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, because there have been some that
I've not
last
do
more
that
than one
much. Yeah.
week. Yeah,
Yeah.
some that we come back to later, and there are weeks that we miss. So, but yeah, for a good long run there, we were all learning a new game every week,
Oh, all right.
and that was hard.
Yeah, I can
But
imagine.
we've
Uh,
gone into more repeat games lately.
so Earthman Brick is saying the time dilation episode of Star Trek was ace.
Oh yes, that was the one Scotty ran. That was fantastic.
So yeah, since you mentioned that you've played over 54 different, is it games or the 54 systems?
Well, 54 games, because
54.
several of those are based on the Merkborg system. So yeah.
Sorry about that. Someone seems to be having races outside. Uh, yeah.
Well,
I was going to ask. I mean, since you've tried out a lot of different systems and games, you've been running through a lot of different game masters. Do you have any kind of like do's and don'ts? Like, hey, this thing almost always makes a game fun. This thing almost always makes a game not fun. That kind of insight.
yeah, I'll tell you. I don't have something. I don't have a specific answer to that question, other than everyone has to be on board with what you're doing. I can give some things I've learned from the stream. One of them is the standard assumption that the game master should be the expert on the rules at the table is made up and doesn't matter. It is totally fine to run a game with someone else at the table who knows more about it than you. You don't have to be embarrassed if you don't know a rule. It's fine. You're there to have fun, and if you need to pull out the book and look it up, we do it on every episode. Don't worry about it. So that was a pretext that I came into Tales from the Backlog with that vanished almost immediately, because I was like, here's the thing: if I'm running the game, which I do run most of them still, um, if I'm running the game and I only have Saturday to Monday to read the book because I ran a different game on Friday, I'm not going to read the character creation part. I'm
Yep.
just not going to. So people are like, "Hey, Steve, how do I do this part in character creation?" I'm like, "I don't know. Read it. I got to read the other part." and
That's fair. Yeah.
and yeah, when we get to game time, a lot of the times what I've learned to do is at least glance at the character sheets to see what is expected to be on them, because that actually does help me learn how the rules work.
Okay.
But yeah, like the character build process, I don't go through that unless I have extra time, which I often don't. um so yeah, that, and it's fine. Like if I'm playing, a combat, and I'm like, I don't know how this works, um, and someone else at the table or someone else on the call does know how it works. That doesn't hurt my feelings. Let's do that. So that's a big one. And then I wrote up something during the big OGL debacle that happened with Wizards of the Coast, when everybody was suddenly declaring they were going to go do new games, and I was like, I am the guy who can tell you how to do that. I want to find my post because I don't remember exactly what I wrote, but I was pretty proud of it. Yeah, here we go. It was 3 steps that I put together,
Mhm.
which I'm a little tired today, or I could have remembered them anyway, because I do these. Um, the 3 easy steps to learning any new game system. You just have to ask yourself 3 questions about them. And if you can answer these 3 questions, then you will pick up the rest of the game pretty easily. First one is, what is the central resolution mechanic? Is it a D20 roll? Is it a D6 roll? Do you do single dice rolls, or do you do dice pool rolls? Are you rolling over a target number, or are you rolling under your own stat? Or what? Like, those are some very common ones that a lot of games use. Um, in fact, like Critical Role released their new game recently, Candela Obscura,
Yeah. Yeah.
and everyone was like, it uses D6s, and I kind of just like glanced at someone talking about it. I'm like, oh, it's a D6 dice pool system. I know how this works, and I didn't need to like. I mean, I'm sure if I ever run the game, which we are planning to do eventually, I'll read the rest of it. But that's like, if you understand the central resolution mechanic, how our conflicts resolve, what do you do with dice?
Yeah. That
Then
that
you're
makes
halfway there.
that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah,
you might get some other stuff, but like for example, you might have exploding dice, or you might have special effects, but the core 90% of the work will be done by that single mechanic.
exactly. Yes, and
Unless it's
yeah,
say
and then
AD&D, in which case you've got about 36 different mechanics for everything.
sure. Most systems these days seem to
Yeah,
be
they don't
going
do that
for
anymore.
simplicity. Yeah, they seem to be targeting so many games that I've run that try to be D&D, but easier. And Easy D6 is the best one, by the way. Scotty nailed it. But there are lots of them that do that. So then the second question is, if there is combat, how does action economy work? Figure out when it's time to start taking turns, who goes first, what can each person do on their turn, etc. Do you roll for initiative? You know, there's a great game called Hyper-Tellurians, which was the first game we ever ran on Tales from the Backlog, where it is, by the way, this is one of the games that inspired me to even create Tales from the Backlog. This in Merkboard, because the books are beautiful. But in this system, there's a concept of fast turns and slow turns. At the start of a round of initiative, you say what your character wants to do, fast turn or slow turn. People who take fast turns get one action, and people who take slow turns get to do two actions, but they go later in initiative.
Okay.
So the way it works is all the player characters who are going fast go first, and then all of the NPCs who are going fast, and then all the player characters who are going slow, and then all the NPCs who are going slow. And it's just, do you get one action or two? And that's very simple. There's no dice involved in initiative. That one's great. And a system very similar to that with fast turns and slow turns is also used in Shadow of the Demon Lord, which we've run recently. Alan has run that for us. And that's a cool system. Except in that system, it's not you get two actions. It's you get an action and a move if you go slow, and you get just an action if you go fast. So that's an example of what I was talking about. A basic mechanic that I already understood, but you just got to read a little further. There is a slight change. That's not a big deal. And then the third question is, and this I think is kind of the most important question in a way, what is the selling point of this game over similar games? What is the unique mechanic or concept that somebody thought was worth it to publish a whole new game when there are already all these other games out there?
So when we were saying earlier that the core mechanic would be 90%, just of 90% of the things, this is the remaining 10% of Druze. All right.
Yeah, exactly. This is after I play this game, what do I want to make sure I have experienced from it? Because it's not going to be the math, right? Like that's not going to be what makes the game. That's not going to be what makes the game more fun than D&D. In Hyper-Tellurians, for example, I would say that the answer to this question is the wonder system. Every time you see something amazing in Hyper-Tellurians, the whole party gets a point in a pool called wonder, and then you can spend points of wonder to accomplish amazing feats in the game. So the game is sort of built around the assumption that you're going to be going to fantastic places and witnessing fantastic sights. And so you collect all these wonder points. The whole party has to agree when you spend some, and then they can grant you abilities like doing an incredible shot or manifesting a memory from your past. And it's a really cool concept that makes this game unique. In Easy D6, I would say it is the fact that you are building characters without stats. That's the thing that Easy D6 does that I don't think any of these other 54 games do. You build an entire character sheet, and instead of numbers on it, you just have brief sentences describing things about your character. And all of the mathematical differentiation between characters is accomplished with whether you have a boon on your roll or a bane. And that's fantastic. That's very simple if that's what you're into. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that will help you grasp the system. So if you can answer those three questions, the rest is gravy. If you know the answers to those three questions, you can sit down to play. And then you may have to look up the rest of the rules.
So Danjimate is saying, hey Steve, you guys should do a Call of Cthulhu soon.
Call of Cthulhu. Yeah. I've had my eye on it. It may happen. I don't own a copy, so we'll see what comes up. I bet you Jason has multiple editions of Call of Cthulhu. We'll see. Jason is someone who is on our Monday night stream very frequently. He's basically been with us since the beginning. He actually grew up in my hometown with me, and he's been a gamer since childhood. And he has more games probably than I have DVDs, which is a lot. He probably has more games than I have books, which is even more. But I would bet he has Call of Cthulhu, and I would value his opinion on whether we should run it. But yeah, I will talk to him about that. And if not, we'll just buy some. But yeah, that's another thing. It does get expensive buying
Yeah, I can
buying all
imagine.
these games. Yeah, of course we only buy one copy for the group. I think that's standard practice. But there are some games that I know we've been successful with a game like Merkborg when I already had a copy and I'm sharing it with the group, and they go buy their own copies anyway. And
Yeah.
I think 5 or 6 different people in our little community have bought Merkborg
Uh,
and have their own
s-
copies of it.
I'm sorry, Steve, could I interrupt you for a second? I'll need to
Absolutely,
pause the stream for a couple of minutes, but we'll be right back. Okay?
absolutely.
Boom. Here we go. Yeah, sorry
Welcome
about that.
back.
I had to run out and close the windows because I think one of the bakers around here lit up their ovens, and I am not entirely sure what they're burning, to be honest.
Oh, that sounds unpleasant. Where are you located, Carl?
I am from Malta. It's Mediterranean, just a little bit
Okay,
south
yeah,
of Sicily.
I know where Malta is. Yeah, I saw some mention of Malta on your Facebook page, but I didn't know if that's where you still live.
Yeah, yeah. I like it here.
Awesome.
So we're going. We're saying yes about people still buying their own copies of the game after. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
a good playthrough is one of the best recommendations you can get for a game.
absolutely. Yeah, it it's been a blast, really. I feel like I've been talking sort of off leash for about an hour. Is there anything you want to kind of direct the conversation to?
Uh, yeah, I mean we could talk about again. You've been writing and running games for a while, so earlier asked you what makes a game fun or what definitely makes a game not fun from different systems when you're playing as a player. Now, as a dungeon master or a game master, what's your what would be your tips for game writers or story writers, what have you?
Okay, so I am better at this in a long form campaign than in one shots. I always refer to our Friday night ongoing campaigns as our main campaign. Uh, but if you're going by the amount of mental energy I put in, Mondays are the main thing because it's so much harder to constantly be learning these new games and coming
Yeah,
up
yeah, for
with
sure.
systems for them and scheduling people because we have a regular crew for Fridays. And if they can't show up, we got to do something else. On Mondays, we're constantly herding cats to try and get people to sign up for the games. Mia's a very common site. She's in almost all of them, and so is Jason. Beyond those two, not much. There's some other people who have been consistent for short periods of time, but anyway, that's not the question you asked. My tip would be um, first of all, I think it's okay for everyone to have a different style GMing. So my tip is only going to apply to people who are kind of like me. But um, preparation wise, know your world very well. Know the setting and know what I like to do is build basically societies that the characters can interact with. I don't always even worry about creating the NPCs within the society until it's go time. But what I do is I come up with, well, what is this culture about? What are the player characters going to encounter if they try to do X, Y, Z here? Um, and I will sort of seed multiple societies around the area if they're going to be traveling. And the, the gist of the advice is know your world, but don't over prepare. Because if you understand the framework of the of the world your players are interacting with, they're never going to be off the rails. They can go wherever they want, and if you understand the world well enough, you will know what would happen if someone did that.
So kind of go
So
for the broad strokes and then oh, this is happening, so yeah, I'll use this and this and this and this and roll with it. Yeah.
exactly, and I'm a little more improv than I think some GMs are, and I'm uh, I would think I lead more towards improv than towards preparation, but preparation is still required. Um, you can't sit down and run a game without an idea, although I have, but only for my son. Oh man, that was fun. My son first D&D game, he found a easy like flowchart how to build a D&D character
Okay.
that was just in our house, and he found it and he built himself a character, built himself a ranger. He was 6, 7,
All right.
and he wanted. He said, "Will you run a game for me?" I said, "Yeah, let's do that tomorrow. Give me a day and I'll come up with a campaign for you." And he said, "We can't do it now." I said, "Well, Johnny, it takes time for me to come up with a story for you to play through. I didn't know you were going to ask me this." He said, "Please." I was like, "All right, sit down." So, so that's the only time I've ever run a game with zero preparation. I have run a game with 30 minutes preparation because of last
Oh,
minute
all right.
cancellations on the stream, but only for my son have I ever run a game completely from scratch. He didn't care.
Okay, I see Sean joined us. Hi, Sean. How are you doing, man?
Hello. Monday
Okay.
nights are a good time to angle for a guest spot. Please, anyone in the chat, anyone I see currently in the chat, these are all people I know. I'm not going to give out spots on the stream to people I don't know or have never heard of. Just just to put that out there. But I am looking for more people because there have been a lot of streams this year that have been canceled for lack of signups. So if anyone's available Monday nights and I know who you are, hit me up because yes.
Okay. I'm guessing it's pretty difficult to keep finding more players for the streams, yeah?
Yeah, what I hoped for at the beginning and what I basically achieved was kind of a big stable of regulars. So people are it's low commitment. People don't have to be there every week. But, if I only need 3 to 4 people to play and I've got 20 people in the community, I was thinking that's enough. Well, I ended up with 7 to 10 people in that pool. So there have been people who were very consistent for several months, but then their life situation changed and they're just not able to be in it anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. That happens.
And yeah, it happens exactly. Um, it's designed to be low commitment, so if they can't do it, they can't do it. But I would like that stable to get bigger because if I had 20 or 30 people rotating through, I could have 3 to 4 each week on the show, and that would be great. I used to have a rule: we don't roll unless there's a GM and 3 players. That rule has been adjusted down to a GM and 2 players. We have not yet run with a GM and one player. I don't think I'm going to make the adjustment quite that far. The layout of the stream can typically hold 5 people,
Hmm.
so a GM and 4 players, and yeah, that's what I would like. But like we said, life gets in the way. You don't always have that many people available. But Mia's been with us since the beginning. She was in our first episode. So was Jason, and the two of them, I haven't counted them against each other, but either of them easily has way more episodes than anyone else. They've been in most of the streams. Probably second behind them would either be a guy named Kenny, who's not able to be in it very often anymore, but for a while is very consistent, or my wife, who shows up in, I don't know, 1 in 4 or 5 of these.
All right.
That is Sarah, if you don't know. If you've ever seen the show and you've seen
Yeah, yeah.
Sarah on it.
So, next, from any no, actually, a question: Do you ever run modules, or do you just grab everything interesting you can out of a module and then do your own thing with it?
Okay, so for Monday games, if I'm learning a brand new system, I usually will look for a module,
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
because I want, yeah, it's not just the prep work, but also I don't know the system well enough to know what would make a good module in the system. So I'll often go just hit up Google, hit up the subreddit for that game, and look for people talking about what's a good one shot, and whatever the community says is the good one, that's what I'll run. A lot of the times these books will come with example scenarios in the book. And if it's short enough, because our show's only 3 hours, if it's short enough, I'll just run that. Because that's the one the game designers thought was a good example. And that's what we're trying to
Especially
do
for
is,
people who are learning the system. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's what we're trying to do is show off the system. And if the game designer thinks this adventure is a good example of the system, then that's the one to run. Um, yeah, so that's what I do on Mondays. On Fridays, I run all my own stuff, with one exception. In the middle of campaign one, just to try it, I threw in a published adventure that I modified to sort of fit into our existing story arc. It was called The Blood Vaults of Sister Alcava. I for, I forget the publisher. It might have been Cobalt Press. I'm gonna double check myself as I talk, because I don't want to give credit to the wrong people. Uh, but it was a third party D&D fifth edition adventure. I'm not even sure it was written specifically for fifth edition, but it was a third party adventure. And I had to modify it because undead creatures are very rare in our campaign, and
Okay.
it was originally set in a world where vampires were the ruling class of the nation.
Ah, okay.
So I was like, well, I mean, I can take the core of this story, but we got to change a lot of other things. Let's see. Man, if I had my Shadows of Archonia notebook in this room, I could just look it up real quick. I think the adventure is still in there. Um, yeah, it might have been Cobalt Press. Yeah, it was indeed Cobalt Press. It's called Blood Vaults of Sister Alcava. It's written for 5e. It's a cool little adventure about basically like a rogue priestess who's sacrificing people. And I wanted, you know, a few weeks off from prep. So I just
Yeah,
grabbed it.
that
I have
that's
I
that's
have
fair, I
all
guess.
these folders. I have all these folders of published adventures that I got from Humble Bundle that I never run because I'm always running my own stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna grab one. Grab one. I credited them, but yeah.
So, from the modules you've run, is there any particular one that stands out? It's like, hey, this is a regardless of system.
Um, Not really. It's a little bit of a fog. Well, at least not off the top of my head. Maybe if I go glance through my own playlist here, I'll think of something. Um, but I can tell you which games I really loved. Obviously, I mentioned Merkborg was great. When you look behind me at the books, Cyborg, which is basically Merkborg.
Yep,
Generally, if you look at our channel, the ones we've gone back to multiple times, those are my favorites.
yep,
So
that makes
Blades
sense.
in the Dark, Merkborg, Cyberpunk Red. I really liked Modiphius's Conan game,
Oh
which I
yeah,
believe they're ending their run of it right now.
really?
If you
All right.
guys, yeah, if you want to go by the Modiphius website, all of their material for this game is on a huge discount right now because I believe the license is passing to another game company.
Oh, okay.
Um,
One of those things. Yeah.
but yeah, I really liked that game. This is another aspect of constantly learning new games that you start to notice. Sometimes the game is great, but the presentation of the game in the book is poor, and that is the
Mm.
situation with the Conan Player's Guide. Information that you need is all over the place in the book. Like things aren't grouped together. Sometimes you'll reference a rule and you won't be able to find the rule. Um, Once you learn the system, I really like the system. It's a 2D20 system that Modiphius uses in a lot of their games. They also use it in their Star Trek Adventures and some of their others.
I know they're also using
John
using
Carter.
it in their Skyrim skirmish game.
Yes, and I think they use it in a lot of their licensed IP games.
I,
But yeah,
to be honest, I think it works well for a role-playing game. I don't think it works that well for a skirmish game, simply because you're rolling more dice all the time. But yeah,
yeah,
for a role-playing, I think it is a good system.
yeah, it's a great system. I would like to use it more. Um, someone in the community was telling me they want to get some more Star Trek games under their belt. We did one episode of that way back, and that's 2D20, and it was very cool. But yeah, the Conan book, it's just unfortunately a poorly designed book. You can learn it, and once you learn it, we all really I think everyone in the game agreed the game is good, but the book is like a wall between you and the game.
Yeah, I think I understand what that means.
Yeah. There are some others that are so difficult to learn. There is a Mistborn Adventures game. A lot of our Tales from the Backlog episodes, you will see we don't really know how the game works at the beginning, and then by the end of it, we figure it out. We're on a roll. Mistborn, we did a two-part episode of, uh, and we never figured out the game. I cannot tell you how that game works.
Seriously, that
we
complicated.
it's so bad. And I think in that case, it's been a long time, but I believe in that case, I would say that the issue was both a not that great of a game and a very poor book layout.
Okay.
So every time we wanted to look up a rule, we would instead be met with 3 pages of narrative text that was included in the rule book. For example, I don't know. Writing example play scenarios is something a lot of tabletop RPG books do, and it's not useless. I read them sometimes, but more often than not, I need to read the rule itself before I can even bother reading an example of that rule in play. And the
Mhm.
problem with Mistborn is it was mostly example text and very
Oh,
little rules
ouch.
text. Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, what is this an example of? I don't know. I love the Mistborn novels. Huge fan.
Those are
The
Brandon Sanderson's, I
main
believe. Yeah.
character. Those are Brandon Sanderson. And yeah, if you want to read more of Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn writings, do get the Mistborn Adventures game book because there's a lot of narrative stuff in there. But yeah, that one, and then the other one, which I will not put this on the game system. This is on me, on us, but maybe mostly me. Shadowrun 5e.
Mhm.
Could not learn it in time. Didn't get it. Never ran combat in the adventure I ran in Shadowrun 5e because I didn't understand the rules well enough to run a combat.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, like that whole episode, don't watch it. It's a waste of your time. It's not the game's fault, it's mine. But it was just too complicated. I didn't have time. I didn't learn the system. But yeah, it was, I mean, there's nothing wrong with complicated. But the problem was the game was too complicated for the amount of time I had to learn it. And that's not a bad thing because some people like crunchy, complicated games. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna give it another shot someday.
Yeah. On the other hand, you do play a lot of Cyberpunk Red, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, Cyberpunk Red. I've never had to run it, and I don't know the system as well as the two guys who have run it for us.
All
But
right.
that's a fairly complex system. Yeah.
Okay, but again, it's like if you have someone who has previous experience of it or whatever, it's that much easier rather than if you're just okay, I have 3 days, I have to learn all this.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Yeah. Oh, you're showing some of the terrain we have for Cyberpunk.
yeah, that was just an excuse to sneak in somewhere terrain.
Great. Yeah. I mean, this is 3D printed. Here's the thing about the crafting community. There's a lot of you guys that I feel like you craft because you really enjoy the process
Yep.
of crafting. Um, that's not me. I craft because I want to possess the end product.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah. And so like I get it. I get it that it is an art form. It's relaxing for some people. I want to get it done. So I actually craft a lot less than I used to because I already have so many modular pieces that are previously built. And then also I have a 3D printer now. I have a couple of them. I have a resin one and an FDM one. And so a lot of the pieces that you see here, actually in this shot, this is a good mix actually. The
Okay.
cars, the metal barriers there, the light posts, those are all 3D printed. The concrete tiles, the walls, and some of the other items in the foreground are handmade,
Okay.
crafted. And then the doors and the roads are just purchased. The doors are from Whiz Kids, and I forget who made the roads, but they're these mouse pad material neoprene roads that you can just
Yeah,
lay
this
down.
works really well for that kind of
Um,
thing.
yeah, so this is a great shot for demonstrating, how you can mix all of these different techniques to just get what you need on the table on the table. This is a wider shot of the same setup here.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's an office building where we were doing a heist, and those are our two vehicles outside. Mia was in this game. She told Matt to paint her car. She was playing the Nomad character, and they're the ones with the cars. So she told Matt, paint my car like the A-Team van.
So
And
this
that's what
one
he did.
down here.
Yes. Our cyberpunk games are actually a hybrid game because most of us are in the room, but Mia lives like 2,000 miles away from the rest of us, so she's remote, which is an interesting challenge, tech wise, but we've got that mostly figured out. So yeah, I have a printer. The other guy, Dean, that I've mentioned a few times, who was in that game, also had a printer. So we got a lot of new stuff for cyberpunk done really fast, especially since Matt is now helping me do all the painting.
Okay. And do you also do any 3D modeling apart from printing, or just even modifying or tweaking stuff, or just printing?
Well, I don't do much of my own modeling, but
Oh, this is lovely.
this was a 3D printing folder that didn't really get taken off. This is from Loot Studios, by the way.
Oh,
If anyone wants to go get this thing, it's from their Journey to Valhalla collection. Um, great boat. There's two others like it that I haven't printed yet.
nice.
Um, yeah, so what was I going to say? Oh, you asked about modeling. I don't do my own modeling, but I sent you a folder called character art.
Uh,
If I can get in a little
sure,
plug
yeah.
for a side business here.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I think I saw it linked somewhere on your stuff. Yeah, definitely plug away.
yeah, I am also, in addition to Shadows of Archonia, I am also Mighty Works character portraits. Um, I use Daz Studio to create 3D rendered character models. If you've ever seen an episode of our Friday show, I do animated intros using these character models for our two campaigns, and then the models are in use as part of the name tags for our player characters. So what I've included here is art for some player characters and NPCs that have
Hmm?
appeared on Arconia. I do also take outside commissions. So if anyone wants to get their character or their party done up in this kind of style, I'm available for that. It's a little side business I have. I haven't been promoting it much lately, but I am still available for it. So there's the group shot from campaign one. And there's some both mix of campaign 1 and 2 characters here. So what I do is I don't create these models from scratch. Every character model and the clothing and the items that they're holding, these are all licensed models that I can pose or modify.
I got you. All right.
um, the big guy there is Throck. He's a modified werewolf model that I purchased, and so I don't really do modeling from scratch. I have some education in that. I never really got super into it, but I've been doing this as at a hobby level since the 90s. So I actually have a huge library of these props
Okay.
and characters that I can work with. And I am able to change colors and textures and reshape existing models. And I can I can make your character for you is how I do it. Essentially, for me, it's like playing with dolls. But that's Reese Kerban. That was my wife's character in some of our games.
Okay. She looks scary. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
she turned out to be the Raven Queen.
yeah. Oh, oh, okay. Uh, so do you have a link for or something?
Yeah, let me drop it in the chat, I
Yeah,
guess. I'll
if you
put my
can.
ArtStation link in.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll pop it in the what do you call it? The YouTube chat. Uh,
Okay.
okay. I don't think you can post a link directly into YouTube, but if you drop it on
Oh,
Zoom, I'll copy it over.
okay, we'll do. I'll have to log in. Apparently, I haven't logged in my ArtStation in a while. Yeah, but you can just look me up on social media as Mighty Works Character Portraits or my real name, Steve Boshier. I am available uh, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and ArtStation. Here's my link.
Right, when Brick is saying, I recommend never reading books, they're dangerous. At first, you start just reading them, but then your imagination takes over and you start to picture what is written down. It's terrifying. Yeah, that's
There you
exactly
go.
why I don't touch books of accounts and things like that.
Yes, I just put my link in the Zoom chat. So
Okay,
that's my ArtStation. You can reach me that way.
going up.
You can also see some of my other work there.
Okay, and it's linked.
So yeah, this is a fun thing that I do that I think sets our stream apart is that we have a fully animated music video for our stream intro.
Yeah, yeah, I watched that. Oh, okay, so that's how you did this. All right.
Yeah, yeah, it's a combination of animating characters like this and also a lot of stock footage and various 2D backgrounds. Yes, there's a great guy named Cody, Pretty Boy, who played that character you just had open, Kafra.
All right.
He was someone I met through the Dungeon Dudes patron Discord. He became an early fan of our stream, and eventually he fell behind on the episodes. And I told him if you catch up, as soon as you catch up, you can guest star because this was during COVID lockdowns, and we were all remote anyway, so it was a simple matter to have a guest star from elsewhere in the country just pop in.
Okay.
So that was fun.
This guy kind of looks
This
like
is
blonde hair Jason Momoa. Yeah.
he does, yeah. That's Kiergan. He's a monk. I created my own monk subclass for 5th edition called Way of Thunder,
Okay.
which is part of our Archonia setting. Um, Unfortunately, the player, this was a replacement character because Throck, the big burly ape man, Erman, died in episode 88
Oh
out of
no.
100, which is a tough time for your character to die. Early on, not so bad. Last episode, not so bad. Get through 88 out of 100, kind of sucks. But Kiergan came in, did the last 22 episodes.
Yeah, and this guy looks super interesting.
This he is our he is kind of our centerpiece NPC for the world of Arconia. He's a little bit like a mascot at this point. That same player I just mentioned, who played
Mm-hmm.
both Throck and Kiergan, in one of our games from before we were ever streaming, he played a mind flayer as a player character using some homebrew rules that we had.
All right.
Um, and it eventually, uh, we were playing Out of the Abyss, if you know that adventure for 5th edition.
Not really, no.
Um, Okay, well, it takes place in the basic concept is demons have gotten loose in the Underdark. They've come out of the abyss and they're now in the Underdark, and you have to find a way to send them back before they get out to the rest of the world.
Okay.
So in the finale, he and I had been sort of building to this over time. In the finale, this character Abraxiel, who was a mind flayer, also became a lich. His motivation was he was a good aligned mind flayer, and he didn't want to have to eat brains anymore. So in order to not have to eat brains, he made himself into a lich.
Yep.
And the lore that we had was the normal ritual for becoming a lich involves sacrificing an innocent soul.
Okay.
But he altered it, and instead of sacrificing an innocent soul, he was a necromancer, right? He used his whole horde of zombies, and they slew Demogorgon, the Lord of the Demons, and that was his sacrifice for his lich elixir.
Okay.
Was the soul of Demogorgon. He became an immortal, incredibly powerful lich. And this is a little trick I played on my campaign one players. When we started running Shadows of Archonia, I told them it was an original setting that I'd created. And mostly it was. What I didn't tell them was it was a dying Earth, far future version of the same campaign world that they had all played in with me before. And they
Oh,
found out in
okay.
episode 27 when they met a guest player character who was a warlock. And he revealed the name of his patron to be Abraxiel, which is this character. And for several seconds, you could have heard a pin drop at my table. And because the guy who played Abraxiel was at the table. And he was he and I had earlier conversations that made me feel free to do this without his advance permission. He and I had earlier conversations about Abraxiel's goal one day is to become a warlock patron, and someday I want to play a warlock that is a patron, a warlock of Abraxia. So he didn't know that that is the world of Archonia. Abraxiel is this massively powerful being who's just really weird because he's a mind flayer, and I always play up how alien they are in my world. That their thoughts are incomprehensible to normal
Hmm.
humanoids and vice versa. So Abraxiel being a mind flayer that can talk to regular people and understand each other means that he's insane for a mind flayer.
Okay, I get you.
So and and he's also a lich and he's immortal. He has ridiculously low insight. He can't read body language. He doesn't get like normal things, but he's a good guy and he's intensely powerful. So he is just in episode 4 of campaign 2 was also revealed to be the patron of one of our one of our new players who wasn't in campaign 1 and doesn't know who this is. But yeah, he's a fun character. He's a mind flayer lich who is nearly godlike in power and has had several warlocks in his service.
And he's still a good guy, World of Patrons still.
Yeah, he is a good guy. He briefly was an enemy of the party in campaign 1
Okay.
because uh, I got into some what do you call it, metaphysical stuff at the end. The world was collapsing, and the common wisdom was that it was because of an imbalance between good and evil.
Okay.
And but there was another voice saying, "No, the balance is a lie. The balance is a lie that evil uses to keep us from wiping it out." Because the universe doesn't need evil to exist. And so there was these two philosophical viewpoints that were opposed. Abraxiel was believed in the balance. And when all the other great evils like Demogorgon and Orcus and so forth had all been slain, he was like, I guess I got to do this. And he became the bad guy because he didn't want the universe to be
Just to
destroyed.
keep
He
things in
thought, I got to be,
the balance. Oh
yeah,
yeah. Wow, wow.
so they ended up having to kill him. But of course, because he was a warlock, I revealed in a little epilogue animation that I made that 500 years later, he finally remanifested and came back.
Okay.
Because that's what liches do.
Dungeon is saying someone should play an evil warlock whose patron is Barney the Purple Dinosaur.
Lisa.
I don't know, Lisa. I mean, like, there's evil and there's war crimes evil.
Yeah.
Nope. No, it's like it's
You
like
don't
it's
want
like
that.
forcing your players to listen to Baby Shark over and over again. It's just
Listen, people talk trash about Baby Shark. I'm a parent who had a kid that age when Baby Shark was new. There are so many worse songs out there on YouTube. If my kid was playing Baby Shark instead of something else, I was happy.
all right.
There's stuff out there you don't want to know about.
Okay, Campaign Terrain is saying necromancers aren't automatically evil. I mean, just look at their green initiatives. Reduce, reuse, reanimate. You have a
Yeah,
point, sir. You have a
that's
point.
what Abraxio believes in. That's what Abraxio believes in for sure. He
Okay.
doesn't. I think 2 million years into his life, he still doesn't get that people have a problem with necromancy.
Uh, uh, the way I'm understanding it is some kind of he's kind of like some kind-hearted but absolutely oblivious person. Like, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
let me fix that with fireballs.
Yeah, he understands very complex concepts like multiversal mechanics, but he doesn't know what you're saying right
Okay, Steve. So, what do you say we jump into Discord and have a look at what everyone else posted? Just have a quick look in there.
now. Let's do that. I've been glancing at it while we've been talking. There's some great stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay, first one up is Earthman Brick. More greeble boards for transformer displays, I guess. Yeah, I think they're transformers.
Oh wow.
I really like the color and the texture on these.
Yeah, that's great.
Guessing they're more MDF spruce and plastic spruce, but I think mainly MDF spruce. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I like the transformers for scale. This is a cool build.
hmm I mean, he does a lot of these builds out of literally MDF scraps, and they have this really interesting end up with this really interesting texture to them. They've got
I,
that.
I wish I had a. I was gonna say I wish I had a game in a setting like that so that I could do this because that looks awesome.
Yeah, and what I really like is the depth of these pieces because you've got all those layers going on there. So that it
Ooh,
always
yes,
looks really interesting. Okay, I'm going to start painting this sculpt today. Earthman brick again.
that's great.
Yeah. And jumping on for a sec, here's the painting thing.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'm guessing those are you. That's you slime, I think, possibly.
that Ed looks beautiful.
Yeah.
So there's so many people so much better at this stuff than me. That's great.
Nice.
Oh, sounds like my son is home.
Okay, okay, this is from Questboard Terrain.
All right.
Din din din.
Ah, I feel like I've seen
Possibly you might have
this
seen
model.
a. I think it's Kim, if I'm not mistaken, that started out as a rhinoceros, yeah. So
Yeah.
I know this is for the barbecue season challenge that's due next week. So I'm not sure if she wants to reveal more details about it right now.
Okay.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I see. So there was a toy that was cut open.
yep.
I got it.
And
That's
these
pretty awesome.
horse have been attached onto this pins, I guess.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, I like the way the metal effect came on. Okay, this is from Lisa. I believe it's also uh for the barbecue season video next week.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, this is Lisa. Okay,
Okay, that's
that's pretty nifty.
crushed crystals in there and possibly some bits of Lisa because the way she was cutting them up yesterday wasn't exactly the safest.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, I mean, no, it wasn't. But secretly it was, but yes, it was. Okay, yeah, and this is nice. Uh, that's an infinite portal that Lisa was working on yesterday.
Oh, that's great. How big is that? It
Uh,
looks like very small.
I think it's about uh, yeah, I think it's less than 2 fingers thick, and it's
Okay.
quite small
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. Just looking at the little grains of flock on there,
Yeah,
they're big in scale to the thing. But that's a nifty little portal.
yeah. I think she built it over the course of about 1 hour or 2 hours at most. But yeah, she and Russ were talking about it on her hangout yesterday and they literally just build the thing in literally live right there in front of us.
Oh, she's saying it's an inch and a half wide. Okay.
Inch and a half wide, yeah.
Um, and Earthman Brick is pointing out there's a skull in the previous entry from Lisa.
Oh yeah, so there's. I
If you look inside there, yeah,
think you can just see the ice over here.
yeah, that's a skull. I'm so used to skulls from my own channel, it just went right by me.
Okay, so Meredith from Scatter Terrain. With the upcoming floating terrain challenge being revived, I'll be pulling this one back out and getting some better photos and video. Oh yeah, okay. The Necrobotanist's mobile laboratory.
Oh my goodness, that thing is killer.
Oh yeah. I think that was several deodorant bottles and wires and other stuff.
My goodness, that's so cool.
And these,
I could build I could build a whole adventure scenario around this piece
oh yeah.
easily.
Remind me, Mary, do you have a video out on this already? I think you had done one, but yeah, it's definitely worth visiting and checking that out.
Oh, great! I will.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's all for today. So
Great
some
submissions.
yeah, beautiful work, everyone. Ah yeah, Meredith is saying yeah, mainly it's for deodorant sticks.
Okay, that's funny.
Okay, so think we should be looking to wrap up in a few minutes, possibly. But before we go, do you have anything planned for Shadows of Arconia? I know you've just started on season 2, so maybe you want to just focus on that. But
Yeah, I do actually. What I have planned that I can talk about is
yeah, fair, yeah.
because I know my players are going to watch this, but what I've planned that I can talk about is more tech improvements. I think we finally gotten the camera and sound to a place where we can move on to things that other people have been taking for granted for a while, like music.
Okay, yeah.
We starting this week, this Friday, we're going to be experimenting with using music during the streams. Um, it's tricky because we have live mics in the room with us, so we can't play the music so we can hear. Because if we do,
Oh,
it'll get
crap, right,
picked up
yeah.
by the
Yeah.
mics. And that's why we haven't had it for so long. But I've learned a little bit about doing auto ducking in OBS so that it will automatically lower the music under our voices, which is going to be a useful tool. Um, and I'll do some experiments this week. I've already got a few songs picked out, and we'll be doing episode 1 of a new mini campaign in Cyberpunk Red because we're on a brief hiatus from the main campaign right
Okay.
now, and we will have music in it. I've got Matt will be running that game, and I've got him looking at the music with me. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's a big step, but this is the first time, honestly, that I have felt secure enough in how the rest of our production value is settled in that I
Okay, I got
can
you.
really spend time thinking about getting some music working. We've recently upgraded all the cameras from old the C920s, which are 1080p, 30 frames per second. We now have 60 frame per second cameras on all of the people. Fun fact, apparently there's a contingent of Twitch users that don't take you seriously if you're not at 60 frames per second, which I happen to think is kind of silly because it's just 5 people sitting still at a table. What do you need a high frame rate for? But like we were getting certain comments that like they really thought that our stream was being like uh our stream was like having technical issues because it wasn't at 60 frames per second. I was like,
Why?
these cameras don't even do 60. Twitch people are a different breed, but I come from a filmmaking background. I think in 24 frames per second. I get that 60 frames per second is cool if you're playing a fast-paced video game, but why would you need it to watch us? but
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, it's largely
but
static.
I guess it if they can see that little 60 down there in the right corner, it makes a lot of people take us seriously. Which,
I mean,
okay,
if it
I
makes
guess
more
we'll do
people
it.
happy, alright, I guess.
Why not? It's a little bit of expense on the cameras, and it's a lot of extra hard drive space on my end.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I don't care. Whatever. It's kind of fun. So we're at 60 frames per second now. Woo! And that's what we've done recently. The music is what we're doing coming up. Um, we are running campaign 2 a little differently than we did campaign 1. Campaign 1 was basically one 100 episode long story.
Whoa.
And I'm breaking this one up into smaller chunks. So our first 4 episodes were basically one story. Um, and I'm going to spin it off into what happens next, starting with episode 5, which will be on in July. Um,
Just one thing.
yeah,
So you're saying that the first campaign is basically 300 hours of content, kind of thing?
yeah.
Whoa.
It is. It's a bit much to bite off, but maybe more importantly, it's a bit much. It was a bit much for me to bite off because what I did was I put this very high level metaphysical prophecy in episode 1 about one of the player characters, and I was like, I couldn't. I really wanted to run a 1 to 20 campaign in 5th edition. I wanted players to play at every level of play, so I can't pay off this prophecy until the end, right?
Okay.
You know, in retrospect, there are ways I could have, and then found it kept the story going another way. But yeah, there's a prophecy in episode 1 that doesn't pay off until the last 15 episodes of the show, and then the rest of it is dealing with the fallout of that. Did not do that with campaign 2. There is a little callback prophecy, but it's not nearly as significant to the plot. It doesn't require me to keep my player characters alive until episode 100. So
So yeah,
yeah,
that's another question I had. Did you actually plan out to have 100 sessions, or did it just happen to stretch out that way?
I think around somewhere around the 70s is when I realized we're going to be about right to get to 100. So then we started aiming for 100
Ah, okay.
episodes.
Yeah.
There's technically 101 because there was a player character, there was a player missing for one episode, and we did a little one shot,
Ah, okay.
which we called episode 76 and a half. Um, but it's not in the same playlist. You can skip it. But if you want to know what was happening with Daro and Anastasia, you have to go to our other like one shot playlist and find that episode. And then also episode 100 is 5 hours long to our
Whoa.
usual 3 hour episodes. Yeah, because it was like, you guys, we're finishing this today. I'm
Yeah,
not calling you back here for episode 101. We've got to finish.
that must have been out of coffee.
Um, oh boy. Um, Fortunately, we usually play live Friday nights. The last 10 or so episodes of Campaign 1, we actually pre-recorded during the day on Sundays. For
All right.
logistical reasons, we had to. Um, so as far as the energy levels in the group, that was very helpful because you know everybody works a whole week and then comes to my house after work on Friday and plays a game at night. People were understandably quite tired, but the Sunday games have much higher energy.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Would you like to see the end boss of campaign 1? Because I
I
sent him to you.
definitely would.
He's Tharizdun, and he's in the Tharizdun folder. And the
Okay,
reason that I
hang
wanted to
on.
talk about him on your stream is how I made him.
Let's bring him up. Okay, yeah, I was looking at this one earlier.
So I was talking earlier about do whatever works, and
Hmm?
I really love the fact that my table will have handcrafted stuff and printed stuff and store-bought stuff all in the same setup. This is all of those things in the same miniature. So I really wanted Tharizdun, the Change God, for the final boss of Campaign 1. And my 3D printer broke. Um, I'm not a good sculptor. I cannot sculpt a Tharizdun from scratch. But what I did have was a bunch of other random minis that I'd never painted and a lot of broken pieces of failed prints that I had previously attempted, but they failed on the 3D printer. So I only had the leg or something. So this is a combination of a fire giant, a giant crab that originally was supposed to have an ogre writing on it, some skulls that I just store bought, a chain from Michael's, and then that one of those arms and the sort of second torso and head on the back are from a planeswalker miniature from the board game. You remember maybe a couple of years ago there was a big run on Five Below because they were selling these like Planeswalker board game sets. No, you don't remember it. The Tabletop Crafters Guild Facebook group was overtaken and had to start new rules because everyone posting their hauls from these cheap miniatures
Oh,
that
okay.
people. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so that black shape on its back that has like an arm and a head, that's one of those sort of cut in half. And then I melded the whole thing together with clay and glued it. So this giant monstrous chaos god is literally just made of random pieces of other things that I had already in my office.
That sounds
And
appropriate.
yeah, exactly. I was like, because it's Tharizdun, this works. Right? Very, very, very fun stuff. My players were blown away by this miniature. It's huge. I don't have anything for scale in these photos, but it's, I don't know, probably as tall as my head. Um, yeah. And like I said, I'm not great at sculpting. I don't know about all the materials that people usually use for this kind of stuff. So I just use regular clay to sort of smooth over the junctions and bind this thing together, which makes it very heavy.
I mean,
Um, yeah,
in terms of appearance, I think you got it perfectly right because,
yeah.
I
So
mean,
this is
you can tell it's
something,
all
yeah.
a creature that's been built up from lots of different parts, and none of the parts are supposed to go together, but there aren't any. Did you use some fabric here?
No. That what that probably is layer lines from one of the 3D prints.
Okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
I don't know about the whole. I'm not sure what that is actually.
But yeah, I mean,
Oh,
like,
you know what?
mhm.
No. Oh, can you zoom back in? I think that's clay, and I think that's my thumbprint in
Oh,
it.
yes, that works.
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
fire effect too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's speed paints. Army Painter speed
Mhm,
paints
yeah.
are very helpful. Yeah. So anyway, I don't have a lot to say about him other than what I did, but I like him, and I love I love mixing different things together to get the final result. I was a big fan of the movie Prince of Egypt, which I studied some animation when I was in film school, and one of the things about that movie is it's this cool combination of matte paintings, 3D animated models, and traditional hand drawn models, all layered together to create this kind of unique look. Um, and the live action Lord of the Rings movie also manages to achieve some of the best special effects in fantasy movie history just by not insisting on using the same technique for every situation.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how I like to get things on the tabletop too. So this model is, of course, the best example of that. Oh, there's the
Okay, yeah.
planeswalker stuff. Yeah, that
Steve
I was talking about.
posted in the community tab. All right.
Yeah, that's that was fun, and there were expansions for it that I guess were overproduced, and so they ended up at like discount stores all across, at least all across the U.S. And yeah, people were buying them like crazy. I
Yeah,
have a lot of miniatures from them.
I think Earthman Brick also used the same kit to make some hex tiles for Wasted World, but yeah, I have no idea about this. I've never seen this game. Must have been before I really got back into this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of on the periphery of the crafting community myself. I've sort of been, I've sort of been in it for many years, but I'm not incredibly active. If you go back far enough in the Facebook group, Tabletop Crafters Guild Facebook group, you'll see actually kind of a lot of posts from me. But more recently, I've been spending most of my social media time on the Shadows of Archonia Discord. So I get to meet people like yourself and Lisa and Mia, but I'm not quite as active in the community as I would like to be. I'm in your Discord. I'm in all those other people's Discords, and I never say anything. So it's not personal. I'm just busy.
Yeah, I hear you. Keeping up with all the different discords is like beep 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 beep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So at the end of the day, you have to be very selective about where you're going to spend your time because you cannot stretch yourself out that much. I
yeah, and
totally
I
get
feel
it.
bad because the channel has gotten a lot of support from the crafting side of our community, and I'm just not in those Discords as much as I feel like I should be. But like I said, just got too much to do. When I'm not doing this, I'm a stay-at-home father and I work part-time, and yeah, that's a lot.
Okay, what do you say, man? Shall we call it a night? Or a day in your case?
Yeah, yeah. Started the day over here. I'm going to a movie later.
uh, Thanks again so much
Thank you
for.
so much for having
No,
me.
no, thank you. This was it was great to talk to you. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you as well. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, and
Thanks everyone for coming and hang out as well.
yeah, thanks everyone in the chat. And a quick reminder for next Sunday, 18th, we will not be having a stream on this channel. We'll be having the challenge stream on Net One videos instead. So with that, I hope you all have a great week and see you around. Bye.
All right. Goodbye.